participating in the session last year. So I thought I would go over just a little bit of what we did last year, because I think like I'm seeing some people on there like Deborah and Susie and Carl and Stephanie, new pastors coming in. So I know there's some people that didn't get some of this information last year. That's kind of important. Also, just let me know, type in your comments if you have a question, raise your hand. This is going to be a challenge for me. I told Tammy and Max, I'm used to having the interaction when I teach. So it's kind of a different thing for me. So please put notes in the chat and we'll discuss them if we need to. Would love to try to keep that interaction going. So I'm going to go over a few things. I want to talk about the treasurer's reports, record retention, and then I've got some other topics. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people have got some questions about how to report online. And, obviously nobody has, when they fill out a treasurer's report right now, there's nobody in attendance in-house. So how we're going to navigate that with headquarters and all. So I'll start with treasurer's reports. The membership, as always, I know everybody at church, you can give me a thumbs up if your membership on your treasurer's report is way off. It's like you have 20 people in-house and you have 200 on your membership. Just know you're not alone. You are not the only one. That's probably about 70% of our members of our churches are in that type of position. So don't let it throw you off. Don't think that you're misreporting or anything. It is what it is. The one thing you cannot do is just decide to make a change and go, whoop, see y'all later, and we're now current. What you have to do is, first of all, you have to either write a letter to all those people and get them to say whether or not they want their membership. Case in point, my own church, I'm the treasurer at Hill Creek. We had a couple members that they were in Michigan, they were attending the church, they were listed as members. They moved out of state for about 4 or 5 years. We never took them off a membership because they didn't request to be removed. They moved back into the state and came back and started attending again. We'd have been in a lot of problem if we would have removed them off of membership. So you don't know that situation. Now, if you've got notification that somebody has passed away, definitely record them as deceased. I mean, that's going to happen. If you have members that you know are faithfully attending a different church, contact that other treasurer and find out if you need to transfer them so that they can accept them in. But if you have people that are just on there and you don't know what they're doing, you need to send them a letter. You need to maybe, as somebody comes in, as you move somebody in, you can transfer somebody off. But don't just do a blanket, we're going to remove 60 people today from our membership, because that just doesn't work. We could get into some trouble because some people just want their name listed still. We also have at Hill Creek, we have a member that's listed that she's a shut-in and she's still a member of Hill Creek Church. So we want to engage with her and still try to keep her connected with the church. So important moment there. The attendance. How many of you know for sure you've got the attendance recording the way it's supposed to be? Like 100%, you know that you're putting everything in the right category. There's one line item there that is, see, I've been at church for 40 years and there are people that I don't even know. Yeah, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. You've been there 40 years, you don't even know who they are. Yeah, that's very typical. Again, I've been the treasurer for maybe 10, 12 years, and there's people on our book membership that I don't know the name of. I see their name, but I don't know them, don't know anything about them. Or I find out that they're connected to, a member that was the original member of the church. And so you're just like, you're going to stay there. Okay, so when you do the membership, there's a category that is a shut-in category. Right now, that or off campus. I know that's going to be a big thing now. If you're delivering food, we're doing like what we call ding dong drop. You ring the doorbell, you drop something on their porch, and then you leave, and then they come and pick it up. So we're doing some of that type of thing, or sitting in the car. You call them, you sit in the car, they open the door, and you can talk to them. We've done that as well. So those are some important ways to stay connected. And you count those as like some visitations, or, for those that are pastors, those are still some visitation numbers that you want to put. For the online, I talked to Brother Box about this prior to coming on, because I figured this would be a point that people would need to know. There is a discipleship off campus category. In that category, what we're doing right now, or what we want you to do, take your number of hits on Facebook and live stream. So and I know that's going to be huge, because I told him, I said, okay, Hill Creek alone, that's over 700 now. So, it's big. But what you'll want to do is take that number from the week and then average it by get an average of the number of times you did a live stream or you were online. So if you had 700 hits and you did, you were live every Sunday, you were live. So that's 4. And then maybe you did a Facebook Live 1 or 2 other times during the week. Take all those numbers, get an average for the number of hits you had that month. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody does that make sense?
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please, Max.
And just so for that number, and this is just kind of the social media side of things, the number should be, you'll see on there, it'll tell you a certain amount reached, a certain amount views. So the number that you would want to use for that is the views, because reach is basically what that means, is that your church or your live stream was shown up on their timeline. That doesn't mean that they clicked on it and were on there. Where the views, it's that they spent time on there. It doesn't give you the details of whether that was 5 minutes, whether that was the whole time, but that's the number that actually came in and spent time within that service. Because again, there's those 2 numbers, so that way that makes it a little bit even more specific to those that were a part of it. So
right, yeah, good point. I know, because if you're scrolling on Facebook, you count as a view if you just scrolled past somebody's live stream. So you didn't stay there, but you just scrolled past it. That's considered a view. So good point there, Max. Thank you. Let me look here. How many of you, and I don't know what some of the names are just like their phone style. So how many of you, if you can give me a thumbs up, if you are currently reporting your treasurer's report online? Just take a quick poll. Okay. All right. If you're not reporting online, it is a huge, huge time saver, especially if you're using CDM. But if you're not using CDM, it's an okay thing. Here's what some of our people are under the perception that if you report online, it's going against the Church of God teachings because you have to have that signature from the pastor on there. That is a fallacy. Reporting online originated from headquarters. They are endorsing that. And if you need to, and I see a question of what is CDM, I will be going over that in just a little bit. And what if you're doing services online? I think we covered that one already. Okay, so I will be going over CDM here in a little bit. But reporting online, just to kind of give you an idea of time savers, when you go online, you enter the numbers and you hit send. Once you get used to doing that, it's probably a 5-minute process online. If you're not doing it online, I did them without being online. It was a good half hour. By the time you compile the numbers, put everything in, it was time consuming. So then on my end, what also happens is When I get those reports to enter on our end, I have about a 2-minute process per treasurer's report that's entered online, as opposed to a 10-minute process for every report that's entered online. So put that into perspective. If I could get every church to report online, we have about 100 churches. I would spend maybe, half hour to an hour processing everybody's reports. And then that helps because we've downscaled on our staff here as well. So if you need that information on how to report online, send me an email. I will be glad to walk you through that. I'll be glad to help you with that. And then the second step in that is if you're reporting online, but you're not doing an ACH, so you're not doing an auto withdrawal. How many are doing auto withdrawals for your treasurer's report? Anybody? I see Debbie is. If you're and Nicole. So if you're not doing an online, what that does is stamps are expensive now. That saves you $1 every month. I know that's not a lot, but when you look at the cost over a year, that's 50 cents per stamp to one to here, one to headquarters. If you schedule both of them to report online and pay online, then that it does save money and time as well. Saves you from going to the bank, it saves your envelope, it saves your stamp, saves the paper. So it is a cost savings factor that will over time stack up. If you want that information, also send me an email. I just have to send you an authorization form. And if you want to put in the chat, just put send me the form, and I will be glad to, I'll take note of those, and I will make sure I send that form to everybody. And then you would also have to get that form from headquarters, because I do an authorization here, and then you'll do an authorization at headquarters. And then when you submit your treasurer's report, you hit send and you're done with it. All you have to do is print it for your records. We withdraw the money out of your account. Headquarters will withdraw their money. You don't have to do anything else. It is a fantastic process. It's secure. We do require checking account for that. You cannot do that by a debit card or a credit card. And the reason for that is that it only costs us 25 cents per transaction. So it's a very minimal charge for us to process those online. So just a great way to process that. And I see Debbie says it's easy. It is, Debbie. Thank you. It is a very easy process. And Debbie, if you can, go ahead and type in there. I mean, it wasn't hard to set up either, was it? I mean, it was a pretty easy process to set up. So I just need your checking account number, basically. That's all it takes. Any questions, if you can, put them in there about treasurer's reports. I will be glad to answer them. How many of you churches know your tax ID number? Yeah, it's that little 38 number. It should be on your treasurer's report. I'm looking at comments real quick here to see. Let's see. Like the form, Grace Church. Okay. If you don't know your tax ID number, some churches are incorporated, some are not. That can get a little difficult, a one-on-one basis. We did find in some cases that some of our churches were actually using our tax ID number. Very dangerous and not a good thing because payroll gets mixed up. So verify your tax ID number. If you don't know it, it is something that you really need to try to make sure you get a hold of and know. If you don't know what it is and you need some help trying to track that down, please call me. I will be glad. Like I said, that's a per case situation. It's kind of like property sales and loan renewals. They're all individual based on the bank that you use, and how to navigate that can be a different step for every church sometimes. So there's not a cookie cutter mold for those things. So if you have any problems with those tax ID numbers, get it to me. We need to get that listed on the treasurer's report. So on your treasurer's report itself, there's a spot that says EIN. not your church ID number, but your EIN. There is a spot on that treasurer's report. If it's not on there, we need to work at getting it on there. So if it's not, please text me or call me or email me. Let me know your tax ID number. We'll get it imprinted on that form or make sure it's associated with your church, which, by the way, printed treasurer's reports are not necessary anymore. So, make sure you don't have to have them that way anymore. They will issue them still, but I have a feeling that's going to start phasing out, actually, because the online process is getting so popular that it's a huge cost saver. Think about the cost savings at headquarters. If they're not issuing a treasurer's book for every church in the state anymore, the cost at headquarters alone has got to be thousands of dollars. I mean, because they would send that treasurer's book. It had, 24 reports in it. And think about sending that out for every individual church. That cost savings is huge on their end. So just another area for that. Max, quick question for you, because I'm not as familiar with Zoom. I think you're still on here, right? Yeah. Can you let me know? I will be able to go back and get all of the group chat, correct? He must not, maybe he's not there. I'm thinking I can go back and get all this group chat later so that I don't miss anybody's emails and notes. But okay, so let's see, next. Anybody have any questions about treasurer's reports before I go on? Yes, meetings are being recorded. Just a recap for attendance. Okay, reporting discipleship off is to include the online views. Yes, reporting of discipleship off campus, that's where you record the internet views, your online viewing. Okay? All right. Record retention, and I know some of you have gotten this information, but it bears repeating. Let's see. I gotta find where I'm at here. Record retention, receipts, your financial information. 7 years, you should keep bank statements, canceled checks, and disbursements and receipts. Okay, that's very common. That's the 7-year for the IRS. But opposite of that, for tithe envelopes, you know how we have to keep all of those tithe envelopes and they stack up, and it's got a person's name on it and the amount they gave. Typically, if that's the only information on it, it's not really a huge confidential situation unless they've got like account numbers or social security numbers or anything like that. Maybe even if they fill the address in, you may not want to just throw it away. But your tithe envelopes, you only really need to keep for 2 years. So save your storage and only keep those for 2 years. As long as you have that record of giving in your computer, in a database someplace, you do not have to keep those envelopes for more than 2 years. But you do need to keep the record of giving. So make sure you keep that. Your membership list, we already talked about, is permanent, and of course, church deeds. How many of you know where your church deed is at? Church deed is important. Yeah, most people have thought that 10 years was what you had to keep that. That is for individual payroll in IRS. 10 years is individual, 7 to 10 years. But for corporate, 7 years, like I said, 7 years for your financials, bank statements, canceled checks, which I don't even keep canceled checks anymore. That's on my bank account. I keep the bank statement. Because I can go to the bank if I need a canceled check. I don't even get them back in the mail anymore. I don't think anybody does really anymore. When you get a bank statement, usually it's just the statement. I usually just print my statement out online. Excuse me. Church deeds. If you don't know where your church deed is, please call us. What has happened a lot of times is with church deeds that people will before you were there, before you were born, the property was purchased, and then the church name changed names 3 times. So you have a church deed that's in a name that if anything was to happen, it's not associated with the current church. So it is very important to make sure you know where your church deed is. If you don't know that, again, call me. It's a case-by-case situation, and I know that but it's something that is really necessary. We do have some of the deeds here because they were supposed to have been forwarded here in a file. You should have kept a copy of it, though. So please track down and find your church deed. Okay, I'm looking back at some. Yay, Joetta, you know where your church deed is. How do we handle electronic giving records, giving without envelopes? Once that's reported, you should be keeping track of that in a database somewhere. So online giving, you enter that. What I do for an online giving, I will print out the actual receipt from an online giving, and then I enter that into my database as a contribution. So once that's entered as a contribution, it's under that individual's name, and then that's my record. So then I have that record in my database, and it'll be there until I no longer have that database. Does that answer your question, Tom? I think, okay. Give me a thumbs up. I think that was Tom's question. You fill out an envelope for each online giving so that it matches every. You know what? Unless that's really the way you want to do that, you don't have to fill out an envelope for every online giving. I think it's a lot more time if you just print out, like when you go into the online, your online, like I use Stripe. There's different online giving. If you go in there, I click on that giving unit and I just print it out. I print out the, like with Stripe, I actually get an email. Every time somebody gives online, I get an email from that. I just print out that email. It's a 1-page document. And then that's all I use. I don't have to worry because it identifies everything that they're giving to. So you don't have to worry about it being, that's your documentation. It's got your transaction number right there on it. If you ever need to go back and verify anything, you can go back to my Stripe account. I can find that actual transaction number and verify the person that gave it and what they gave it to. Wanted to know if we needed a hard copy of each transaction. I don't know if that's the way I do it, because then I can keep track of it. I actually print that document out so that it matches the deposit. The one thing you want to make sure of, and this gets confusing depending on the vendor, and I'm going to go over some vendor information a little later for online giving. But once you give, like I use Stripe, the giving comes in and the deposits are very sporadic. Like I'll get 5 people that gave, based on their giving institution, it may not clear my bank for 3 to 7 days, depending on their giving, or depending on their institution. So I might have a deposit that's $20 and it's only one giver, and then I might have a deposit that's $500 that's 10 givers. So I personally print those documents out, staple it to the actual deposit so that I know who gave to what deposit. Does that make sense? That way I can keep track of it. I enter it by batch into my system so that my deposit matches my givers, and then I can always track back. But I don't necessarily fill out an envelope. I would recommend that you print out that document, and then I print out, let's see, so you attach them all to the printout. Yes, I do. And then that's what I file that. So that's my source document that I've entered into my database. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. I've got to scroll down here because I think I missed a question. Your online giving sends a weekly report, and I just put it into Excel. Yes, and that works also. What the key that you want to make sure of is that your deposit in your system matches your deposit at the bank, because that's the only way you can verify that that online giving came through properly. Because here's the other thing. I don't know if any of you have had it happen yet, but if somebody does an online giving, they can resend that online giving. And that can be an issue as well. So I try not to count, like pastor will say, how much giving did we have? I'll say, well, this is what we gave. This is what's known, because I had one person that resended a $200 gift. They actually hit 200 instead of 20. So, it came back. So I don't want to count that 100% until it's actually in my bank, until it's processed. Sends a weekly report, one new message. Okay, let me see down here. Sorry, I'm trying to watch this, and I attached them all to the printout. Yes. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions about online giving? Other than I am going to go over, if you're not doing online giving, ways and how to set that up. So I will be going over that in just a little bit. Okay, I did finish record retention, church deeds. Where'd my list go? All right. Let me take a really quick, short second here about your pastor. I know I've got some pastors on here, but let me, as treasurers, encourage your pastor to participate in state events, in state functions. It is very important. It's vital that they participate. That is their support system. So as a treasurer, please, the overseer will always send out a letter saying, support them, provide X amount of dollars for them if they need to stay in a hotel. If you live too far away and they need to stay in a hotel, hopefully they'll be staying in a hotel for camp meeting this year. We're still on track for it, so we're hoping that we're still going to be able to do that. But in these days, we don't know what's happening. Our plan is right now is to still have camp meetings. So hopefully that will still go forward, which I will tell you right now, for anybody that's available, if that goes forward, we're going to need all hands on deck to get these grounds ready, because Matt can't do it on his own. Side note, I'll step into just the state office employee for a minute. We're going to need all hands on deck to get this place ready, because we haven't been able to do that as of yet. But encourage them to participate. We want to see their faces. We want to know that they have everything that they need. We want them to be part of what we do here. We want them to participate in Pastor to Pastors. We want them to participate in the Connect meals, and we don't want anybody out there alone. That's the whole point of that. So treasurers, encourage your pastors to participate in those things. And if we're trying to do online for those pastors that are bivocational, we know that's a struggle. So help them and encourage them and make sure they get the information that they need so that they can be part of everything that happens around here. Let's see, participate in state events. One more thing on the treasurer's report. If you don't know, the state minutes do say the ministers voted. I know you're sending 5%, 5% to the international office. You send 5% to the state office, but there is an additional 2.5%. And it's not 1%, it's not 2%, it is 2.5% now. So please make sure you're doing that. That is what helps us not only make our loan payment on these grounds that you own, but it also helps us buy things that we need to keep it updated. If you're a lady and you have to stay in one of those cabins and you wanted a new shower stall, we've put some new shower stalls in. But yay, they're going to stay good for a while. But you know what? There's 12 of them over there. If we have to paint those bathrooms, if we need to update and make changes in the staff shower house, we can't do those things unless that 2.5% is covered on those treasurer's reports. That's what it helps us do. So please make sure those reports are accurate. If you're not doing it, it goes in the other line, just write campground, and it's 2.5% of your tithe. And we all appreciate that. Like I said, it was voted on by the ministers at the last ministers meeting, so it is there for now. So thank you very much. Yes, it is 2.5% additional. Well, because 5% goes to headquarters, 5% of tithe goes to state. So then on your treasurer's report, let me see if I can get this. You're not gonna be able to see it. On the treasurer's report, there's a column that says other, and that should be 2.5% an additional. And I know I do have one church. Thank you, Nancy. We have a church we have a couple churches that actually send 4% because they believe in the campground. So they do send additional, and it is very appreciated. Very appreciated. Let's see. Okay, that was 2.5 tithe. Okay, how many are, just real quick, I told you I would talk about CDM. I know some people are questioned about that. What databases, and you can type this in for me, what databases are you using for your income receipts? I know some people just use Excel, some are using CDM, some are using, can't think of some of the other ones, QuickBooks, some just use Windows, okay, Church Track, okay. CDM it's called Saran, CDM Saran, and that is the database the Church of God has sanctioned, or that's their database that they use. That database actually has the Church of God Treasurer's Report built right into it. So once you set it up, like I use it for Hill Creek. So I'll go in when I do my Treasurer's Report at the end of the month. I just go into Treasurer's Report. I click add report, and it loads my figures. It puts in my tithe, it puts in my attendance. I have to enter it all, of course, but it compiles it, comes up with the calculations, and I hit submit. It goes to headquarters and state office, and I'm set up on ACH. So submitting my treasurer's report, compiling it, doing all of it takes me a total of maybe 4 minutes on my local level. So, excuse me. So it's a good system. I will say it is a little bit, excuse me, just a minute. I have to, excuse me. Okay, I'm talking way too much. It is a really good system. It can be a little bit pricey for some people sometimes, but it does have a lot of benefits. I don't have to back up my data. They back it up for me. I've got, at any given time, I can go back to within less than a week of my database if my computer was to crash, because I use their online function. I can access it on any computer that I have downloaded the database on. So there's a lot of opportunities that to use with that database. I do know, unless you have the right version of QuickBooks, I will tell you QuickBooks can be kind of scary if it doesn't do fund budgeting, because the Church of God is fund-based. So which that means, you know, we have designated funds that need to stay designated. If you have giving to Home for Children or World Missions or Home Missions or Benevolence, it needs to go to those areas. So you can't just say, well, Benevolence came in and I'm going to pay the utility bill with it. It doesn't work that way, guys. You've got to make sure those funds stay designated. So no matter what system you're using, please make sure you take care of and protect those designated funds. Very important. Integrity. That's the integrity of a treasurer and a pastor, is to protect those designated funds. Is it affordable? Small church. Deborah, what church are you at? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember all the treasurers and the churches they go to. Bethel. Okay, yeah, Coloma. Call me. I will get you. I will put in the phone number for CDM. It really depends on what modules. It's based on modules that you use. They also have an online giving or it's called Engage that you can set up online giving through them as well. So it is a good program. Hold on, let me get the phone number and I will type it in here for anybody. Leonard Spell, I don't know if any of you know Leonard Spell or not. He's the one who typically comes and sets up our voting at ministers meeting. So I will type in real quick here. His contact, 85, no, that's not right. I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. His cell, 877, Saran, 877. 891. Okay, that is the number for the contact for Saran. Leonard Spell is also a Church of God pastor, and he's a representative at Saran in the sales department. So if you call him, he can help you. And then the other thing we can do, I will try to help if churches get that. I will tell you the database, when you initially get it, can be very overwhelming because it does a lot. There's a lot of ways to do the same thing. So there's a learning curve to it. But what I can do, if you'll call me, if you end up going that direction, call me. I will be glad to help you set up that database so that you don't have to struggle with that backside of it, because there's the backside to set up as well as the user side. And they also do some online webinar training with that database as well. So it's like I said, it's a good system. It can be overwhelming when you first look at it. So don't let that scare you, but be, try it. It's a little bit more detailed, but it takes care of your treasurer's reports, your attendance. It does your membership. It will do your all kinds of stuff. You can print a church directory from it. So there's, you can group people, you can do attendance for a youth group and your different classes and different outreaches. So it's more than just your financial database. It can be it's your church database as well. Let's see. Okay. I don't know if any of you are familiar. I've done a little bit of research and working with the whole COVID thing going on. The Church of God has a website. I'll type it in there. If you haven't seen this, that is the Church of God website with all the resources to help with financial or different ways to keep you connected with what's happening around the nation. I know if you're wanting to get any information, like Governor Whitmer just extended the stay home, stay safe in Michigan till the end of the month. So if you haven't heard that, we are extended through the end of the month. So hopefully everybody got that information. It is, I'm sorry, it's Corona, you're right. I typed it in wrong. That's what it is, guys. Sorry, I didn't realize I typed COVID. It is Corona, COG. So I actually wrote it down wrong even. There is a resource. I don't know if any of you have heard of the PPP, the paid payroll program that came out of the CARES Act. So you get connected with that through your local bank. Brother Box has initiated a process for that. If you're interested in filing for that, you go through your local bank. But prior to that, you have to be in contact with the overseer. It is a loan. So as a treasurer, just know that is a loan that's coming to your church. You have to follow the process and the procedure that the state has put into place because it's considered a loan. So you will need to, it has to have a church conference, and I know that's a challenge during this. You can't have a church conference in your building, so you have to go through one of your forms of media. You have to have a consensus from the church members to be able to get this loan. So go through, your pastor has to set up some type of a consensus, whether it be making phone calls. If you do a Facebook Live, just remember that opens you up to anybody else that's on Facebook if that's public. So you're going to be getting possibly more than just your members. You can do an email and have them respond back, but you have to have some kind of a vote of some kind. And then you also have to get permission from the overseer. So you have to submit a letter in request, and then he has to submit the letter back. So there's a little bit of a process, and I know even right now our banks are on hold. There's so many of them that were put through that they've stopped processing them right now. So so if you're going to do it, you go ahead. I would say go ahead and process that. It covers your payroll. Again, there is some information on that coronacog.com website. I do not want to by any chance to sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on that process right now. I am going through it, but I don't have all the answers. I do know that it is a 1% loan that can be forgiven, but you can only use it it's supposed to be used for payroll. 75% of it has to be payroll, and the balance can be, the other 25 can be interest on your note or utilities or what was the other, or like medical insurance premiums. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be glad to try to answer them. But again, I am not going to sit here and claim to be an expert on that topic. I just know that it's a huge one right now. So you can type them in there if you've got any questions. Let's see. I want to open up if anybody has any questions. I've got, let's see, one person is waiting. Admit, oh, okay. Is there any questions that anybody has in general that you want to go over that I can try to help with? And Max, if you can help me on the hands, I don't know that I'm seeing all of them. Anybody? If I was to unmute, anybody, Max?
Nope. And then you can, if you have something, you can unmute yourself for a moment and ask in that way.
Deed question, do we have to have each pastor sign on the deed when they come in after? No, because that deed is actually signed, should have been signed by trustees and not necessarily the pastor. The one thing I will say about deeds, also, the other thing is that question reminded me of. So no, you don't have to do that. The thing you want to be careful of is that you have the right name on it. And it needs to be the proper name. So honestly, for each church, your formal name at the Church of God International office is the city that you're in. So for example, I'm looking at Susie, it is Traverse City is the beginning of your church name. Traverse City, and then Lighthouse, right? Is it Lighthouse? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Traverse City, Lighthouse Church of God. It's not just Lighthouse Church of God. Because what happens is when those church names, if you have a church name change, which I forgot to talk about, it is imperative that you go through the right process. Here's what happens. I have a lot of churches that change their name and they'll just do a DBA. And then all of a sudden they've got a new logo and they've got a church name and they're changing their church sign. And then they call us and say, our name is wrong on the website. Yeah, no, it's not. You have to change your church name through our office. Because here's what happens. That's the number one reason why church deeds do not have the right names on them. When you change a name, there's a process. The first thing you have to do is send a letter to the office here. We then we have to have a church conference first. The name has to be approved by the church. You have to send that letter of request for name change here. Then we send that to headquarters. And if we don't do that process and your church name change does not get sent to headquarters, you have since you removed yourself from the umbrella of the 501c3 group exemption. Because what happens is, and then when you call the IRS or you're trying to find that group, your name under our group exemption, it's not going to exist, because none of us have the authority to change the name in that 501c3 group exemption. That's solely done at headquarter level. So if you've done a name change and not followed through with that process, you are in danger of not being covered by a 501c3. And I'll give you an example of what one way that happened. We have a church that we had a huge water issue. Their water main lines broke and it flooded the church. The insurance company didn't want to pay because the church was going by a different name than what was on the title and the property. So I had to go back and pull out documentation. They did change their name properly, but didn't change their name on the insurance policy. So what happened is I had to pull out all the documentation that was 5 years old and verify and prove the church name change, how it got put under the 501c3 at headquarters. And it was a huge process. And finally, the bottom line was, well, if you're not going to pay this claim, then we want our premium back from the last 5 years. They paid the claim. But it was a whole long process of trying to get money back that could have been fixed very easily if the proper paperwork would have just been filed. So you don't want to get caught in something like that. It is so imperative to process those name changes properly, and then to get the title changed on your property. And, once you do a name change, I've got a form that I send to everybody, and it has all the steps that you have to take. It's not just a matter of saying, ooh, we want to be called a different name. So, okay.
There was another one that I guess it's still attached to this. So does the deed need to have the Church of God International on it?
It is important to have a Church of God. We do have a Church of God warranty deed for a local church. And it is important to have that as well. So if it's not on that deed, if you have a question about whether it's the right deed, send a copy of it to us, and we will have the attorney look at it and verify that the verbiage is correct on it. Because that's the other thing. Believe it or not, we have had, not necessarily in this state, but there have been places where a pastor has tried to sell the property. And if it's not on the Church of God warranty deed, because that pastor doesn't own that church, they don't own the property, you can't just take a congregation and go independent from the Church of God. So they have tried to sell property. If it's on the wrong deed, it's possible that could happen. So it is imperative to make sure that the verbiage is correct on those warranty deeds. So yeah, that is an important thing. So go ahead, and if you're questioning that, then send a copy of your deed to us. We'll verify it, and if it's wrong, we'll make sure that we get the right document to you to file. Usually, it's just a matter of submitting a new quitclaim deed. An attorney would have to be involved in that, though. So you would need to get somebody to help write that and process that. And Dennis Watkins at headquarters has been involved and helps with that as well.
Okay. Now we have Deborah raised her hand. Deborah, I'm unmuting you.
Hello.
Hey, Deborah.
Hey, I was just going to say that we recently went through a name change. You probably remember, Sonia, and it is a lot of steps, but
Right.
Everything has to be changed from the international to the state. And Sonia, you were a huge help to me. I don't know what I would have done without you. I appreciate that. But it does, there's a lot of T's that need crossed and dots, I's that need dotted in that. But Sonia was a huge help. And
Thank
you
you,
can
Deborah.
it took us a little bit, but we got it.
Okay,
It
Wes,
does take a while.
Wes, I see you there, but there was another one on here. When did it change from 2% to 2.5, and when was this communicated?
That was communicated, oh goodness, not this last ministers meeting. It's probably been about 4 years ago. Is that right? I see Ellis shaking his head. Was it about 4 years? Was it 4 years ago? Yeah. 5. Oh, okay. Yeah, about 5 years ago. And we did send a communication out to all treasurers and pastors at that time. So that's the other thing. If you're not getting constant contacts as a treasurer, please put a note in there as an email so that I can make sure you get added to that if your contact information has changed. I know in some cases we've even had some people who they've opted out, which can be a problem because a lot of times that's our way of communicating. So if you're not getting those emails, please put your email in the communication and so that we can make sure we get that to make sure you're included in that communication.
Okay. Then you got one, Wes here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Wes.
Hi, everybody. Just a quick question as it regards to the bookkeeping software, CDM and stuff like that. We know that we have to use, CDM as far as tithe records and stuff like that. But we've been in a transition, selecting a new treasurer and updating some of the format of stuff like that. And whatever software we choose to use, I was wondering what are the requirements as far as it pertains to keeping track of the checkbook and of the credits and debits that are coming in on any type of device? Is it or any type of system? Is it something that you do in addition to keeping the bank statements and stuff like that, or I was unsure of the requirements there, and it may be a basic question, but I was unsure, so I wanted to ask.
Right. The requirements are keep track of your books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that sounds simplistic. If you're doing a database and if you get a database that's inclusive like that, it includes your bank recs as well. It is very difficult, I will say, whatever you use, what can be difficult is if you try to use manual and database, something's going to get missed somewhere. You need to make sure that if you're going to use a database, you use a database. If you're going to use a manual, like a handwritten check register still, I really feel like that can, well, we've come a long ways. I think you need some type of database to try and stay current. But again, a lot of churches can't afford it. I think a database that is just a financial database is fine but you may not be able to keep records. I guess I feel spoiled because I've got CDM and I use this all-inclusive thing, so it's the only one I use, and it's easy to forget that some people only have like a financial database, like an Excel or something that is not all-inclusive. If you're handwriting checks, I get that. You put it into an Excel spreadsheet or someplace, but as long as you've got to just know that your designated funds are staying designated. That's probably the key. And making sure you balance a checkbook. Most banks nowadays keep all the checks. They usually don't mail them anymore. I don't know of any banks that still mail all the checks. I mean, I used to get a stack this big. My bank statement used to come in a huge envelope with all the checks in it. I don't get that anymore. I just go to my website and there's their website and print off my statement and balance it. As long as you are, you're keeping track of it and you're documenting You want to make sure your payroll is getting documented, because you've got to have W-2s or 1099s. So you want to make sure that type of thing is tracked and processed accurately. Does that answer your question, or?
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, you got one up here.
Okay.
Amy.
Hey, Amy.
Hi. Can you email me the steps of the name change? I'm not familiar, and pastors just changed our name in October, and I need to make sure that we get this all correct.
Yeah, what church are you with, Amy?
We are with the Jackson Church of God but we're now called the Summit.
Yeah, that one hasn't come through yet. So the important thing I need you to have, the first thing to do, pastor needs to just email me. Did you had a church meeting with the name change?
Yes, in October, yes.
Okay, yeah. So just have him send me an email that just says, we're requesting a church name change. We had a meeting on this date, and it was the vote, and the name was changed from this to this. And then I'll get that process. Once we get that, I can shoot you the steps for the name change.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonia.
You're welcome. Yep. And there's probably a few more steps. So, like I said, it's gonna Jackson. That's Pastor Jim Morrison, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, I'm trying to think if I had seen that one come through yet. There hasn't been a huge name change on that church for a long time. So
There's never been a name change until just in October.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's been the Jackson Church since I've been here for more than 20 years. So I wouldn't.
For 60 something years. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a change, and I don't know all the legal ramifications. And when you mentioned some of the stuff today, I just want to make sure that we're on the right side of everything.
Right. Well, and you definitely do need to get that, because
Yeah.
if you've already started changing the signs out front or any, yeah. So right now, as of right now, then that name change is not listed under the Church of God International offices.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it would be important to make sure he gets that email over to us.
I will have him email you today.
Okay. Perfect. We'll get you processed quick.
All right. Thank you very much, Sonia.
Yep.
All right. And then Nancy, I'm gonna unmute you here. Nancy.
Yeah,
Yep. There you go.
okay. On the programs for keeping track of your church records and stuff, Quicken is a very simple, very basic program. A small church, it will work, and it's very inexpensive. It keeps track of your check registers and savings accounts. You can set up your members for their giving as customers, and of course your vendors for paying out. And you can come up with the reports that you need for your monthly reports. Like I said, for a small church, it's a great program for them. And they can reconcile, so the banks, basically the church needs to keep track of the members and their giving individually. They need to keep track of their registers, income and output, and they need to keep it balanced, which is reconciling your checkbook. And like I said, Quicken does that for the small churches really good.
I've heard that. I'm glad you said that, because I had forgot about Quicken. And it probably does do that. Like I said, it would be great for the financial side of the church. So perfect.
And then you have here, unmute, Soraya.
Hi.
Hey.
I have a quick question. I used to do Kindred, so now we just switched from Kindred to Planning Center and Stripe. So I just did my first entry of my reports. I print out my reports for Stripe, but I was trying to figure out how to enter that into the CDM software, or when I was doing my bank rec, actually, that's what it was. I printed it out different, because as Stripe processes it and it does the payout, that's what shows up in my bank rec.
Correct.
But I would also still like, from week to week, make sure my contributors get the proper funds allotted to them. So should I just So should I print it out from Stripe as like a week-to-week thing, enter it that way? Then at the end of the month, when I do my bank rec, print out the Stripes, because it was kind of a difficult task when I printed out my separate reports from week to week, because those numbers did not match
Right.
bank rec. So I was like, it took me an hour and a half to
Oh,
bank rec figured out to see which funds went into that batch. So it was kind of a headache.
right. I actually use, in fact, I was going to talk about this. That's exactly what I use is Stripe and Planning Center. And I will tell you, they work very well together. For online giving, you have to have, just for those who don't know, you have to have a merchant, which is the person that processes, the entity that processes your, whether it's a Visa, MasterCard, the different variances of cards. You have to have that merchant, as well as a software program that connects your entity to that. So we use Planning Center and Stripe, and they work very well together. But to answer your question directly, what I do is I print out each individual Stripe transaction that comes to my email. So they're printed out individually. And then I go to my Stripe account, and then you go under transactions, and I print out everyone that says payout, because that payout is what matches your deposit. And then I match that list on that payout. When you print that, it lists each individual transaction that goes to that deposit. So then I match all those individuals to that payout, and that's one transaction. Sometimes it's just one entry, and sometimes it's 5 or 10.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. There we go, Deborah. Go ahead, Deborah.
Hi, I have a question. I've been looking into like the online giving, different platforms. And most of them, you have to have a website. Is that true for all of them?
I don't think you have to have a website for Planning Center. We work directly through Planning Center, and now, and that one we use Planning Center for its text to give, instead of an online. If you're going to do online giving, you do need some type of a website for that, because that's the way they would access that. I think that would be the easiest. Max, maybe you can answer that better, actually.
Yeah, there's some, I think Givelify is one of those that you could go to their site, but again, it's going to make it a lot more difficult than if you have a site that they can go to and then it sets up directly through it. Because I think, again, Planning Center may have it even online where you can go through them, but it's going to add some extra steps to make it difficult, just kind of with the online giving in that sense.
Is there an easy way to create a website? Do you have to pay for a website? I guess that's what I'm asking, to create one. Or, I mean, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, to do a website, you will have, it will come with a cost to be able to set one up on there. And I can give you, I'm gonna put my email address there. That way you can just shoot me an email. We can kind of look at different things when it comes to the website, depending on where you're at church. So I'll put that on there. Amy put Cash App doesn't require, and again, to get started, that may make it easier to start. But again, I would use something like that to start, but wouldn't stay on there, because that's not created for church and online giving. That's created more for personal back-to-back. So that could bring issues to a church later on, even though again, if you use it in the beginning, it's a quick fix to getting some funds in a electronic way.
I know Planning Center, if you're not using Planning Center, it really, I mean, I think we pay $14 a month for Planning Center, and it really does with you. The majority of our giving, we have at Hill Creek, we have an online giving option on our website, and we also have the text to give option. And I will tell you that right now, I would bet about 80% of our giving, even before we have churches, about 80% of our giving has been through text to give.
When I go to my church's website, there's a Give Now button right on the homepage.
So that planning center is a really good place. Now, I will say, when you're gonna set that up, you need to set up your Stripe account before you set up Planning Center, because Planning Center requires the numbers from a Stripe account or from your merchant account. I know there's other merchant accounts out there. I'm not familiar with a lot of them because after we did some research, Pastor helped me and we did some research, and he said, we just needed to, Stripe was probably the easiest of them all. I know Saria said they used to use, I can't remember, they used to use Kindred. And I'm not sure, I'm curious kind of, Saria, if you can tell me, why did you guys switch from Kindred?
We switched as I was going from Kindred to, basically it was all about the money. So I looked at the difference because we are already using Planning Center for our head counts and for some other options of Planning Center, because there's many different things within Planning Center that you can use. Right. So I was just looking at that. I'm like, okay, they have giving. I'm going to check this information out. And honestly, the percentages is less than Kindred. So, I mean, it might 0.5% doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up.
It is.
So it was like 0.5% less than Kindred. So we switched over. So I switched just this month, I officially switched over. And last month, I think for 3 weeks, I did an overlap. So right now I'm like currently paying for Kindred and Planning Center. But when we just did this whole online thing, I mean, I'm processing everybody to go to the Planning Center. So as we're doing this and navigating to all these, especially a lot of these older people that have not like done any type of online giving or text giving, things like that. I'm really directing them, and we've been really communicating within like our Facebook page and emails and stuff, how to get into and open up the ability to do online giving and text to give. So I just about switching over to the Planning Center and Stripe. It was much cheaper that way. Only thing I didn't count on, because I didn't realize that, like what Sonia had mentioned earlier, that the deposits going into your bank is different. So like she was saying, I'm like, how come I know this person gave it in? It shows that it's in our system, because literally just a couple days ago, I had to walk this older lady through online giving because she's never done it before. I was on the phone for her for like 45 minutes trying to help her, walk her through how to do on her. She wanted to go to the giving portal. She didn't want to go through the app. She didn't want to install the app on her phone. And literally within like 30 seconds of her saying, oh, I just processed it and went through it, showed up right on my feed, so I can pull up the account on the online page and it pops up right away. Yeah, so that's why I was asking her earlier. I'll process it and I'll put it through our CDM system that she had given, but it's not showing up in our account yet, in our bank account. That might be like 5 or 4 days later, because it's a different type of giving. So as opposed to credit card giving, it pops in later than our account than like a debit card giving. So that's something Jeff had asked me too. Why? It's like, I thought we had this money in there. I'm like, well, it's not showing up yet. I don't know. So, right. But that's what it is. Yeah, I think I like that better.
Yeah, it does take a little bit of time. Now, I will say, I try to encourage people to use their, instead of entering a credit card, to enter their routing number and checking account information. Mm-hmm. And the difference in that is when you do just a checking account number through Stripe and Planning Center, it's a 25-cent fee.
Yeah,
that's all. There's no credit card fee or anything. So somebody did ask, how do we process the percentage? I look at it like this. It's money in today's day that we are getting money online that we would not have gotten. Somebody would not have put it in the plate, because the majority of people now attend church without cash in their pocket and they don't carry a checkbook. So when we do an offering, and it is especially now prevalent right now, I mean, with what we're dealing with, you're getting money in that you wouldn't have had. So if you're getting $50 and you lose $1.50 of that, the 4850 is better than the 0 would have been. You know, so there is a cost to this, but we're finding that we actually have more income because we've got teenagers that are paying tithe now because we have a text to give option. They weren't paying before.
Right.
You know, so we're getting more back than what the return is worth it. I guess I should say it that way.
I do have one other thing. I also implemented on Planning Center. They have the option where the people could cover the fee. Actually, I had 50% people actually covering the fee for us as a church. So that's one thing I'm trying to navigate. Like I said, I'm new to this Stripe still, how to enter that in, because it took me a while to figure out my bank rec of how to cover and split different things in there as far as reading their report, the Stripes report for the bank fee recovery that the users are doing. But that's one thing I was really kind of curious about too. I think I figured it out, but it'll probably take me another hour next month I do my bank report again.
You can call me and I'll help you with
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think if you teach through that and making it, rather than just saying, hey, we have online, let's just do it. If you make it part of, hey, if you have never set it up before or never done anything payment online, let us walk you through it. I think when you do that and you begin to help them set it up, it makes it easier. Again, like Sarah was saying about with those options to get them to cover it without kind of forcing it. As you're teaching them, hey, listen, there's an option there. If you want your full tithes to come to the church, you can just click that and cover the fee. And a lot of times, I've noticed, with just different people that have done it that way, where they're 99% of the time, they're going to say, oh yeah, I want all of my tithes to go to the church. We'll cover that. Right. And once it's set, that'll always happen as it's set up recurring for them.
Okay, how would the fee, the fee is reflected when I enter a transaction. Say if somebody gave $50, I will go to their name, I'll enter their contribution, I'll enter $50 because they get full credit for that. They get full credit for that $50 that they gave. The fee is not their expense. It's our expense technically. So I enter $50 as a transaction, as the money that came in. And then if the fee was 25 cents, I enter an expense of 25 cents. So the net deposit is the $49.75. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, whoever asked that? Anybody else? Okay. I will say Stripe and Planning Center work very well hand in hand. I would encourage more text to give, honestly, because that is really, people have that control. How many people that you see do not have a smartphone? I mean, I would say, the majority of the people have smartphones and it's very easy. We just set somebody up. It takes about 3 minutes to connect to our text to give link, and that's very quick. And then now, whenever I give, I simply pick up my cell phone. Let me see here. I go to my text. I go 84321, which is here's the thing about Stripe. I think it's 84321 for all of Stripe, and then, or for all of Planning Center. So then I go in, type my number in, and all I have to do is type a dollar amount in and hit send. I mean, I give within 30 seconds every Sunday. That quick. So it's a good program.
Okay, you have another question here by Amy. So, go ahead, Amy.
Okay.
My question is with that percentage that you lose, where on your accounting sheet where do you take that out of?
I created an additional expense line item in my general fund that just says online giving fees.
Okay, because everything of our money is categorized like building maintenance, office supplies. We don't have what's a general fund.
Okay.
Everything is line itemed. So would that be like an office expense since it's like a banking expense, or how would that work?
You could just make it a bank. Do you have a bank fee? A bank
Well,
expense?
our bank fees would come out of our office supplies.
Oh, okay, then I would put it right with your bank fees.
Okay. I was just trying to, because we don't use, right now we use Cash App, which doesn't cost us anything as long as we cash out and 2 days later we get the money.
Right.
But if, like a lot of people have said, that's not, made for a church to use consistently. It was just something that we could use at this time right now because
Right.
we really count on every penny we get in to make budget. So that just trying to figure out because I know we use Planning Center to check in the kids for Kids Zone. I was just trying to figure out how you guys accounted for that percentage.
The other thing you can do when you set up your Stripe account, you can set it so that you only accept checking accounts. You don't have to set it to accept the checking account, the credit cards. You have the option to say what type of cards you want. For example, we don't accept American Express cards because their fee is too high. So you can itemize what you want to accept. And in doing so, you could select just that they can only go from their credit card or from their checking account. And then you would know your fee is only 25 cents a person.
That's not bad. I didn't realize that you could.
Yeah, you can pick and choose how you want to receive those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Looks like Ellis has a question.
No,
Go ahead.
he just threw up. Ellis threw up on their the website for those that don't have Planning Center or want more information on the giving portion of it. He put it on there.
Oh, yep. Okay. Anyone else? Is your text to give going through Stripe and Planning Center? Yes, Deborah, it is. You have to use both. You may not have been on when we were talking about that, but you have to have both. One is a merchant and one is the software or the database type.
All right, I'm gonna unmute Emery here. He has a question. Go ahead.
Good morning. My question is, Chippewa here in Lake Odessa has always done the old way. We don't have any electronic giving. We're just starting into that now. And my question is, we've always used the tithe envelopes to help track who gave and how much they gave, besides a program I wrote on Excel to keep track of that also. So using the text to give, do we need to create or continue on with the tithe envelopes? Because, when you text to give, you don't put in the tithe envelope.
Right. What you want to do if you use, for example, continue using Stripe as my example, you will get an email every time somebody gives on Stripe. Every time somebody gives online, it generates an email. I print out that email, and then that would be take the place of your tithe envelope.
Okay, I understand that. I haven't got that far yet. We haven't actually been able to connect through Tithely, is what the pastor and I decided to try to use. Okay. And what should I do in the meantime of that? Should I be making out a tithe envelope when I get the money in, or what should I do?
I would go, I'm not familiar with Tithely, but I would recommend you go on that website. There should be something that you can print out for each individual transaction. It should somehow have a username or their email or some type of of reference for each transaction. There should be something on that website for each individual transaction. If there's not, then I would be concerned about that database.
Well, they do have that.
Okay.
Where you can see every transaction that comes in there. Is that appropriate enough information to
Absolutely.
place? Okay, that's what I need. That's what I need.
Because what you want something that's going to reference the individual that gave, the amount that they gave, and there should be a transaction number on that as well. So then you'll always be able to refer back. And it's that information on that printout is similar to returning something to Walmart and them scanning your credit card and they can find that transaction just like that.
Yes.
There's a transaction ID number on that you'll be able to reference back for all eternity. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
There was a question about using PayPal for online giving. What's the downside of using a platform like that?
I think it's a little bit harder to track. I think, again, that one is more personal use. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I mean, it's probably maybe to get started with something, but I don't think you have as much as easy to track. It's not as easy to come back to a transaction. If for example, somebody says, well, I gave X amount of dollars, it's harder to go back and track something like that. You don't always have control of their account. You don't have control of their account. And if it comes into you, when you transfer money and all that, it's not designed to track church giving.
Yeah. And then I don't think you can set it up for recurring, which ultimately your desire with online giving is to be able to set up your people so that continual residual comes in every month as well. So.
Right.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
All right.
Don't see any.
All right, guys. So it has been awesome talking with you all. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call us, email. Amy, I'll be watching for an email for the church name change, and we'll get that process going for you. Just, keep in touch, guys. If there's anything we can do, we're here to help. I love you all. I see you.